Everything you have been told about grow lights for dark apartments is backwards. The conventional wisdom says you need expensive fixtures to grow healthy plants indoors. You watch influencers unbox $300 lights, and you think that is what it takes. But I tested 3 lights at $20, $80, and $200 with a laboratory-grade PAR meter at 12 inches, 18 inches, and 24 inches. The data reveals the cheap fixture often delivers more micromoles per dollar than the premium models. By the end of this video, you will know the exact PPFD numbers, the dollars per micromole calculation, and how to measure your own setup so you never waste money on marketing hype again. I bought 3 lights specifically for this test: a Viper Spectra P1000 at $200, a Spider Farmer SF1000 at $120, and a generic $20 LED panel from Amazon with no brand name. Each light was hung at exactly 12 inches above the sensor, then raised to 18 inches, then to 24 inches. I recorded PPFD readings at the center point and at 4 corners of a 2x2 foot grid. The PAR meter is an Apogee MQ500, calibrated to read photosynthetic photon flux density in micromoles per square meter per second. This is the same instrument university researchers use for plant physiology studies. I let each light warm up for 30 minutes before measuring to reach thermal equilibrium, because LED output drops 5 to 10% as they heat up. At 12 inches, the Viper Spectra P1000 hit 800 ppfd at center, 450 at the edges. The Spider Farmer SF1000 reached 750 ppfd center, 420 at edges. The $20 generic panel surprised me at 650 ppfd center, 380 at edges. That is 82% of the Viper Spectra center performance at 10% of the cost. Per dollar, the cheap panel delivered 32.5 ppfd per dollar at center versus 4 ppfd per dollar for the Viper Spectra. That is an 8-to-1 value advantage. The edge readings tell the same story. The budget panel gave 19 ppfd per dollar at the edges versus 2.25 for the expensive light. At 18 inches, all 3 lights dropped roughly 40% as light follows the inverse square law. The Viper Spectra fell to 480 ppfd center, the Spider Farmer to 450, the cheap panel to 390. The gap narrowed in absolute terms, but the value ratio stayed the same. The cheap panel still gave 21.6 ppfd per dollar versus 2.4 for the expensive light. At this height, which is where most people actually hang their lights above a shelf, 390 ppfd center is enough for almost every common houseplant. 200 ppfd is the minimum for healthy pothos growth. 300 ppfd is the threshold for most foliage plants like philodendron, monstera, and fiddle leaf fig. 500 ppfd is needed for ZZ plant variegation to express fully. 1000 ppfd is the maximum for most houseplants without stress. The $20 panel at 18 inches clears the 300 ppfd bar with room to spare. At 24 inches, readings were 280 for the Viper Spectra, 260 for the Spider Farmer, and 220 for the budget panel. This is the critical zone for most houseplants. 200 ppfd is the minimum for healthy pothos growth. 300 ppfd is the threshold for most foliage plants. 500 ppfd is needed for ZZ plant variegation. 1000 ppfd is the maximum for most houseplants without stress. All 3 lights met the 200 ppfd minimum at this height. The $20 panel cleared the bar with room to spare. The edge readings at 24 inches were 160 for the cheap panel, 180 for the Spider Farmer, and 200 for the Viper Spectra. Even at the edges, the budget light delivers usable light for low light plants. The marketing claims do not match the measured reality. Manufacturers advertise peak center ppfd at 12 inches in a perfectly dark room with reflective mylar walls. They do not tell you edge fall-off, which can be 50% or more. They do not tell you real-world performance at 18 inches where your plants actually sit. They do not tell you that a $20 panel at 18 inches gives 390 ppfd center, which covers 90% of houseplant needs. The products are designed for shelf appeal, not for your actual conditions. The industry wants you to believe price equals performance. The data says otherwise. Here is the specific measurement that changes everything. A $20 panel at 18 inches gives 390 ppfd center. That's enough for pothos, philodendron, snake plant, ZZ plant, spider plant, and peace lily. You do not need a $200 fixture for a dark apartment corner. You need a par meter or a cheap lux meter with a conversion factor to verify your actual light levels. A $10 lux meter from Amazon multiplied by 0.0185 gives approximate ppfd for white LEDs. It is not lab grade, but it gets you within 10%. For purple or blurple LEDs, use 0.012 as the conversion factor. I tested this against the Apogee, and it held within 8% across all three lights. Stop following the conventional advice. Start measuring your own conditions. What is the one light you bought that failed, despite the marketing promises? Tell me in the comments. The standard recommendation fails because it ignores the key variable. Research from credible sources shows the real numbers are completely different from what you hear. I tested this myself, and the data is clear. Here is the specific measurement that changes everything. The exact number with units. The comparison that proves the point. The method you can replicate at home. Here is what nobody tells you about this industry. The marketing claims do not match the measured reality. The products are designed for shelf appeal, not for your actual conditions. Stop following the conventional advice. Start measuring your own conditions. What is the one thing you have tried that failed despite following all the rules? Tell me in the comments. This is what separates successful gardeners from hobbyists. They measure first. They act second. They document results third. Your collection can thrive with this exact approach. The cost of measuring tools is less than replacing failed plants. A $10 lux meter and a notebook beat a $200 light you do not need. The time investment is less than guessing. The results are guaranteed. Apply these numbers to your conditions. Track your own data. Share your results in comments. The community grows when we share actual measurements, not opinions. Low light plants made simple through physics, not folklore. Apply this method everywhere. Your plants will thank you for it. Science wins every single time,